The lights inside the Shreveport facility stay on for 22 hours a day. The robots do not need breaks. They do not need health insurance. They do not call in sick. The building is a template, a working prototype of what Amazon believes the future of fulfillment looks like. Inside, roughly 1,000 robotic systems move goods across 5 levels of automated storage. The human workforce has been reduced by about 25% compared to a conventional warehouse of the same size. The company has told investors that this model will be replicated across dozens of sites. The promise is efficiency. The result is a fundamental reorganization of work. The story of how Amazon arrived at this point is not just a story about technology. It is a story about pressure. Pressure from investors to protect margins, pressure from competitors to shorten delivery windows, pressure from a post-pandemic economy where labor costs became a line item to be optimized. For years, Amazon presented itself as a creator of jobs. During the pandemic, the company hired aggressively, adding hundreds of thousands of workers to meet surging demand. Its global workforce swelled to roughly 1.6 million people. The message was clear. Amazon was an engine of employment, a company that grew alongside the people it employed. But the economics of that model began to change. As interest rates rose and growth expectations cooled, the cost of maintaining such a vast workforce became harder to justify. Executives began looking for ways to do more with fewer people. The tool they turned to was automation, and they turned to it at a scale that few other companies could match. The internal documents that surfaced painted a stark picture. Amazon's robotics and automation teams told company leaders they could cut the need to add roughly 160,000 workers in the United States by the end of 2027. By the early 2030s, the figure could reach more than 600,000 roles avoided. The company's own analysis projected that automation could save about 30 cents per item processed and generate up to $12.6 billion in operational cost savings over a 2-year period. The numbers were not abstract. They were the justification for a massive shift in how the company allocated capital. The ambition was to automate roughly 75% of fulfillment operations, not gradually, not experimentally, as a strategic imperative. The push was not limited to warehouses. Around the same time, Amazon announced it would cut approximately 14,000 corporate jobs. The stated reasons were familiar: reducing bureaucracy, removing organizational layers, shifting resources toward artificial intelligence. The internal memo from Bate Galetti, the senior vice president of people experience and technology, framed the decision as necessary for the company to move as quickly as possible. Employees learned their roles had been eliminated through emails sent to their personal accounts. The message read, "You are no longer required to perform work on Amazon's behalf." Departments across the company were affected, including devices, advertising, Prime Video, human resources, and Amazon Web Services. The cuts were not limited to a single division. They were systemic. The pattern was clear. The company was not simply trimming fat. It was redesigning the organization around the assumption that technology could replace human judgment in more areas than previously thought. This was not a defensive move. It was an offensive one. Amazon was not reacting to a downturn. It was positioning itself for a future where labor costs were lower and capital investment in automation delivered higher returns. The rollout of robotic systems accelerated alongside the layoffs. By the middle of 2025, Amazon had deployed its 1 millionth robot across more than 300 facilities worldwide. The fleet had grown from 265,000 robots in 2020 to 1 million by mid-2025. The company now operates roughly as many machines as human workers in its fulfillment network. The robots have names like Hercules, Vulcan, and Proteus. They lift heavy carts, move containers between workstations, and pick items from shelves. The next generation of Proteus can understand natural language commands. Employees can tell it what needs to be done without any programming knowledge, and the robot figures out the priority, the route, and the timing. The system is designed to handle the heavy lifting, the physically demanding tasks that once required human muscle. The company's robotics chief, Ty Brady, has been candid about the direction. He said he wants to eliminate every menial, mundane, and repetitive job. He described generative AI as the most transformative technology he has witnessed in more than 40 years in the industry. But he also pushed back against the idea that robots are competing with humans. He called that a myth. He argued that automation extends human capacity, that warehouses with more robots will still employ roughly the same number of people, or more. The evidence from Shreveport suggests otherwise. A facility that reduces staffing needs by 25% while processing more volume is not a facility where human employment remains stable. It is a facility where the ratio has shifted permanently. The broader context makes the shift harder to dismiss as an isolated case. Across the technology sector, companies have been cutting jobs while increasing investment in artificial intelligence. Salesforce's chief executive said the company would stop hiring software engineers because AI tools had boosted engineering productivity by more than 30%. Meta's chief executive predicted that AI would reach the capability of a mid-level software engineer. Microsoft's chief executive said AI now writes about 30% of the company's code. These are not startups experimenting with new tools. These are some of the largest employers in the world, making decisions about headcount based on what the technology can now do. The Bureau of Labor Statistics identified 18 occupational groups exposed to AI, covering roughly 10 million jobs. Employment in those groups declined by 0.2% between 2024 and 2025. The decline was small, but it marked the second consecutive year of job losses in AI-exposed occupations. The trend was not a sudden collapse. It was a slow erosion, a gradual reduction in the number of roles available to workers in fields where automation was becoming more capable. The human consequences of this shift are already visible. Entry-level roles are shrinking. Job postings for software engineers hit a 5-year low. Recent graduates are finding that the pathways that once led to stable white-collar careers are narrowing. Companies are demanding more experience for roles that previously served as training grounds. The logic is simple. If AI can handle routine coding, data entry, and basic analysis, then the worker who would have learned those skills on the job is no longer needed. The entry point closes. The pipeline shrinks. The cost of entry rises. For workers who remain, the pressure is different. They are expected to do more with less. They are asked to manage the machines, to oversee the systems, to handle the exceptions that automation cannot yet resolve. The work becomes more complex, more demanding, and more precarious. The promise of stability that once accompanied white-collar employment is weakening. The bargaining power that workers gained during the pandemic hiring boom has dissipated. Wage growth has slowed. Contract work has increased. The balance of power has shifted back toward employers, and they are using that leverage to reorganize work around capital, not labor. MIT economist Darren Acemoglu, who won the Nobel Prize in Economic Science, described Amazon's automation plans as a potential turning point. He noted that no other company has the same incentive to find ways to automate. Once Amazon proves the model is profitable at scale, the techniques will spread to other firms. The logistics industry will follow, then retail, then manufacturing, then the sectors that depend on those supply chains. The diffusion will not be uniform, but it will be broad. The question is not whether automation will reshape work. The question is how quickly and who will bear the cost. Amazon has responded to the scrutiny by pointing to its history of job creation. Spokespeople have emphasized that no company has created more jobs in America over the past decade. They have noted that the company plans to hire 250,000 seasonal workers for the holiday period. They have pointed to the 25,000 new jobs planned in Europe as part of a €10 billion investment in fulfillment infrastructure. These are not trivial numbers. They are real jobs, filled by real people, providing real income. But they do not address the central tension. The company is creating jobs in some areas while eliminating them in others. The net effect, over time, is a workforce that is smaller relative to the volume of goods processed. The company has said it expects to sell twice as many products by 2033 while hiring significantly fewer people to manage the flow. That is not job creation. That is productivity growth achieved through labor substitution. The deeper issue is not whether Amazon will continue to employ people. It will. The issue is what kind of work will be available, and for whom. The stable, middle-skill jobs that once provided a pathway into the middle class are being automated. The entry-level roles that served as stepping stones are disappearing. The remaining jobs require more training, more adaptability, and more tolerance for uncertainty. The workers who can meet those demands will find opportunities. The workers who cannot will find themselves squeezed out of the formal economy, competing for a shrinking pool of positions that automation has not yet reached. The corporation is not a neutral actor in this process. It is a profit-seeking institution, accountable to shareholders, driven by competition, constrained by the need to deliver returns. The decision to automate is not a moral judgment about the value of human labor. It is a calculation about cost and efficiency. When a robot can do a task faster, cheaper, and with fewer errors than a human, the corporation has an obligation to its investors to make the switch. That is the logic of the system. That is the logic that drove Amazon to deploy 1 million robots. That is the logic that will drive other companies to do the same. The future of work is not being designed by policymakers or labor unions or advocacy groups. It is being designed inside corporate planning documents, on earnings calls, in the capital allocation decisions of executives who are measured by quarterly performance. The workers are not at the table. They are the variable being optimized. They are the cost to be reduced. They are the line item to be managed. The story of Amazon's automation push is not a story about machines taking over. It is a story about power, who has it, who is losing it, and how work is being reorganized around the interests of capital. The robots are not the cause. They are the instrument. The cause is the structure of incentives that rewards efficiency over employment, productivity over stability, and returns over people. That structure is not new. But the tools available to enforce it are becoming more powerful, more precise, and more difficult to resist. For more videos on AI, work, and the future of the job market, subscribe to the channel.